Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on the rape of Lucrece, which, content warning, is about sexual violence towards women, and also at this point it's about suicidal ideation. So if either of those is a trigger for you, please tune out. If they are not and you want to hear today's stanzas, we're going to look at stanzas 173 to 176. And we've been spending quite a lot of time with Lucrece recently as she has been grieving the fact that she was raped in the middle of the night by her husband's friend, and she's been dealing with guilt, and she's apologized to her husband, and she's afraid of the morning coming and all of this sort of stuff. And she came to the conclusion that she needs to kill herself. That's the only way to get out of this. But she wants to be able to tell Collatine, her husband, first what happened to her so that he can avenge her, and so that he knows that she didn't sleep with Sextus Tarquinius willingly. So in the end of yesterday's stanzas, she was like revising her will. She's leaving her honor to the knife that will kill her. She's leaving her story to her husband, all of that. She's sort of putting the plans in order for what's to happen after she kills herself. And stanza 173 sort of finishes that off by saying, "Thou, Collatine, shalt oversee this will. How was I overseen that thou shalt see it? My blood shall wash the slander of mine ill. My life's foul deed, my life's fair end, shall free it. Faint not, faint heart, but stoutly say, so be it. Yield to my hand shall conquer thee. Thou dead, both die, and both shall victors be." This plot of death, when sadly she had laid and wiped the brinish pearl from her bright eyes, with untuned tongue she hoarsely calls her maid, whose swift obedience to her mistress hies, for fleet-winged duty with thought's feathers flies. Poor Lucrece's cheeks unto her maid seem so as winter meads when sun doth melt their snow. Her mistress she doth give demure good morrow, with soft slow tongue, true mark of modesty, and sorts a sad look to her lady's sorrow, for why her face wore sorrow's livery, but durst not ask of her audaciously, why her two sons were cloud eclipsed so, nor why her fair cheeks o'erwashed with woe. But as the earth doth weep, the sun being set, each flower moistened like a melting eye, even so the maid, with swelling drops, gan wet her circled eyne, enforced by sympathy of those fair suns set in her mistress' sky, who in a salt-waved ocean quench their light, which makes the maid weep like the dewy night. So the first of those stanzas is still Lucretia talking, and what I think is interesting about that stanza, it just sort of wraps up all the stuff that she had said before, like, yes, she's going to get her honor back by dying and all of that, but she repeats words and just tweaks their meaning just slightly. Shalt oversee this will, and how was I overseen? And my life's foul deed, my life's fair end. Faint not, faint heart, yield my hand shall conquer thee. Thou dead, both die, both victors shall be. Like there's all of this repetition, which almost feels like setting in stone the things that are going to happen. There's just something about repetition. They say you have to remind somebody 6 times to do something, and maybe this is her reminding herself of what happened and what needs to happen now, just repeating all this stuff. But then the last 3 stanzas are the narrator talking and saying that, having come to this conclusion, and with the morning dawning, she calls in her maid, who comes running to her and comes in and sees Lucrece in this state. She's obviously been crying. She obviously looks very sad, but the maid isn't going to outwardly ask her what's wrong, because that's not a cool thing for her to do in her station. But seeing Lucrece look that way, the maid can't help but cry with her, which in a weird way I think is sort of lovely, because Lucrece was talking earlier about misery needing company and how she sort of wanted somebody to commiserate with in this time. And even though the maid doesn't necessarily know what happened in this case, she can empathize with Lucretia, and she also begins to cry at this sad state that Lucretia is in. So girl bonding, yay. But yeah, we'll things are starting to move along in terms of plot. We're Yeah, we'd spent quite a bit of time getting into mindset. Now we're going to focus on plot for a little while, and you come back tomorrow and you will hear more of that. I'll see you then. Mwah.